something on this verse number 6. Continuing on, Shiksha. So to say the translation, we'll say the word for word translation. We'll do the Mangalacharya. Okay, Hare, O Ruffian, Chetaha, Maya, Katam, why, Dahasi, do you burn, Atmanam, yourself, Abhimam, and me, the soul, Snatva, by bathing, Saranmutre, in the trickling urine of Barakara, the great donkey named Rodyat Kapata Kutinati, full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity. Sadatwan, instead you should always, Snatva, by bathing, Nitaram, always, Sudam Bodo, in the ocean of Gandhava, Giridhara, Pada, Prema, Vilasat. The love emanating from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gandhavika Giridhari. Sukaya, delight. Twan, yourself. Api Mamcha, and me too. Translation. O ruffian mind, why do you burn yourself and me, the soul, by bathing in the trickling urine of the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity? Instead, you should always bathe in the ocean of love emanating from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gandhavika Giridhari, thereby delighting yourself and me. Okay.
You can repeat it.
Yeah?
Hey, everybody can repeat it.
Oh, okay, sure.
If you don't mind.
No, at all. Is a translation there? Okay, we can say it together, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so O ruffian mind, why do you burn yourself? And me, the soul, by bathing in the trickling urine of the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity. Instead, you should always bathe in the ocean of love emanating from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gandhavika Giridhari, thereby delighting yourself and me. Jnanatimurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padikamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tvam Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Virgina Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatribhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So in these next verses, again, the mind is being addressed. You can see a slightly different tone here, right? Oh, ruffian mind. That's how Raghunath Das Goswami begins this. And he's talking about bathing in the trickling urine of the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity. So, in verse 4, it was talking about this prajalpa, mundane talks and so on. In the verse 5, we were looking at the enemies of the mind, the 6 enemies. And here it's going even more, and we'll hear about this in the purport from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We start to get into even more around the types of duplicity and hypocrisy. And this is interesting because in the purport by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's talking about the devotees and also specifically the types of duplicity that can be in the heart of spiritual practitioners. So he speaks about 3 categories of spiritual practitioners. 2 of them are householders and one is renunciates. And he lists a number of different types of duplicity and hypocrisy that can be there. So I thought we could read that directly from his Bhajana Darpana commentary and then expand on that, because it's very, very interesting. So he writes, there are 3 categories of spiritual practitioners or sadhakas. The Swa-Nishtha sadhaka only endeavors to please Sri Bhagavan, Lord Hari, and they reject all the regulations and injunctions of Varnashram Dharma. That's one type of sadhaka. We're going to list the types of deceit that can be there. The second type, he says, the Parinishta sadhakas engage themselves in orchestrated activities, taking shelter of all the rites and rituals used to worship the Supreme Lord. These 2 types are grahastas, householders. So again, the Swa-Nishtha sadhaka, householders. The Parinishta sadhaka, they're also householders. Then he goes on to write, the 3rd type of sadhaka is nirapeksha, a devotee who is renounced. Such persons are of the detached nature and not in the grahasta ashram. All 3 types, it's really important, this is his direct commentary, all 3 types are benefited only when they become thoroughly honest and give up deceit, pretense and hypocrisy. Otherwise, they are surely vanquished. Okay? So we've given 3 particular types of spiritual practitioners. 2 are grahastas, 1 type is are in the renounced space, and he's saying that they get full benefit when they give up all types of duplicity and hypocrisy. So now he's going to go on to explain the different types of duplicity that can be there for these different categories of devotees or spiritual practitioners. Okay, and this is very interesting. Linking to where we left off last time, you see, Krishna consciousness is very personal. But also, depending on how someone is, what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is indicating is that different types of spiritual practitioners have different ways of being deceitful. That's also personal. So, yeah, you'll find this interesting. It's interesting stuff. So, he says, each type of sadhaka has a distinct way of exhibiting a deceitful nature. Okay? The deceitful nature of the Swa-Nishtha sadhaka, there's 6 ways that they can be deceitful. First category. Number 1, he lists all of them. Number 1, indulging in sense gratification on the pretext of satisfying the Supreme Lord, Supreme God, right? So, I'm going to say it's for Krishna, but it's really for me, right? So that's the first type. Maybe we'll expand on some of these as we go through.
Give an example.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the example that I read earlier, yeah, it's a very good example. It said that, for example, someone is cooking something, and, you know, it's for the deities, but really, that pizza's for us, right? So that the whole idea is, I'm cooking it for myself, but I'm saying that it's actually for the Lord, right? So it's this very classic one. Right? So indulging in sense gratification on the pretext of satisfying the Supreme Lord. Is that...
Perfect. Not only perfect, but quite common.
Yeah, definitely guilty. Number 2, you'll see some, when we read through this, you'll recognize some of these. Probably in all 3 categories. And this is something, I'm not sure if we'll go in that direction, but this is something that comes up sometimes in our spiritual community. So when I read it, you'll definitely resonate. Number 2. So again, this is a Swanishta Sadhaka, and these are the different types of deceit. The first category is spiritual practitioner, the 6 types of deceit. They say, number 2, serving rich, influential materialists instead of serving simple, nirapeksha servants of Krishna. Anyone ever thought about that or had that come to their mind before? Okay. Number 3, accumulating more wealth than would ever be needed. Okay, so that, again, it's kind of deceit. Number 4, enthusiasm for meaningless temporary gains, even at the cost of envying and harming others. Okay, so bear in mind, as you can see here, it's getting more and more into the subtleties. So really, deceit, hypocrisy is actually when the outside and the inside are not completely aligned, because actually we're still harboring so many other things in the heart which go against the devotional process. So this is also seen.
Number 3.
Yes, number 3 I'll read again, which is accumulating more wealth than would ever be needed. That's number 3. Okay, we'll go to number 4 now. Okay, because I haven't read it, so you haven't missed it. Number 4 is enthusiasm for meaningless temporary gains, even at the cost of envying and harming others.
Example?
So an example of looking for meaningless and temporary gains. I mean, we'll go into this more in the next. Or you could actually say here, it could even imply politics in the association of devotees.
Like vying for position?
Yeah, exactly, right? So undermining other people so we can get a position, over them, playing politics even in the institution. Because remember, these are all spiritual practitioners. So he's not talking about like gross materialists. He's talking about those in the community of devotion. So yes, because that envy. So in any institution, it will attract different types of individuals.
Yeah, I want to be temple president.
Yeah.
I can control the money, I can control the devotees.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, it definitely happens. Yeah. It's a great example, Maharaj. So these are all kinds of deceit and hypocrisy. And these are all things that Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying they must be given up.
I want to be sannyasi so I can do whatever I want.
Yeah. It's very...
Not really. That was brought up to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said to...
Yeah, please select. Yeah.
Prabhupada was saying to Jayapataka Maharaj, why all the devotees want sannyas? And Jayapataka said, because they can do whatever they want and be free. Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there.
It's there, yeah, absolutely. So, carry on. So then number 5, this is interesting. Teaching twisted logic and self-motivated speculation in the name of giving education instead of cultivating spiritual knowledge. It's there. I'm going to repeat that one. It's an example I want to share. Teaching twisted logic and self-motivated speculation in the name of giving education instead of cultivating spiritual knowledge. And that's number 5.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, so first there's a letter by Prabhupada. I think there's more than one place he talks about this. He defines the difference between mental speculation and philosophical speculation. Philosophical speculation means that we accept the Siddhanta, we're trying to understand how it's true. So Krishna says, I'm the taste in water. We want to understand how he's the taste. We're not making up the conclusion. Mental speculation, or as he said here, twisted logic, is when I twist the philosophy, and it's very subtle. They had an example which I wanted to share. They twist the philosophy for a material purpose. So I was at one temple, and one authority in that temple was known for being very harsh with the devotees. And so I was there morning class, and this authority was giving the class. And so he quoted Prabhupada. He said, you know, you don't blame don't blame the instrument of your karma. But the way he was using it, he was basically saying, I know I give you a hard time and you're really unhappy with me, but actually you shouldn't blame me, it's just you. So the teaching is true, but it's actually used as a way of deflecting from one's own bad behavior. You see? Like that. So yeah, so and it happens. There's a way of actually people taking the philosophy, or for example, someone's doing something illicit, and then they'll quote, oh, but the residents of Vrindavan, you know, they rules and regulations, they go beyond rules and regulations. So the point is actually taken in the wrong context. If you take something that's true and you state it in the wrong context and with a motivation, you change its meaning. Like that. So this is a very, and it does happen. Absolutely factually. And especially, unfortunately, if we don't read, you can easily be on the receiving end of such behaviour, and it'll be very subtle, won't be understood. Like that. So that's...
Yeah, like the
good.
Prabhupada, one time, he wanted some drink, lime drink, so they gave him 7-Up.
Yeah.
So he took 7-Up, and then the word got out, and the temples were buying cases of 7-Up. What are they doing? I was just wanted some lime drink.
Yeah. So the sixth one, so this is again the Swanishta Sadhaka, is wearing the dress of a materially disinterested renunciate in order to gain material prestige. So what you'll see, there's also this sense of doing something, but the motive behind it is wrong. So that's why it's deceitful, hypocritical, etc. And subtle, because it's not necessarily the thing that's wrong, it's why we're doing it that's wrong. You see? And that's again, it's a more subtle aspect of changing or twisting the proper teaching. There was I remember this, this is not to do with the dress, but there was a situation in Prabhupada's time. I'm not sure if it was a temple in India or somewhere else. Someone was leading kirtan. And actually, Prabhupada, when he heard them, he said, who's that Rakshasha leading the kirtan? Very heavy thing to say. But the point is, Prabhupada had detected that they were doing it for their glorification rather than for the glorification of the Lord. You see, so it's again, it's not the activity, it's the motive behind the activity that's taking it in the wrong direction. Yeah? And that's where we have to, and again, that's where we have to be very careful. Let's be very real. It's easy now to in the name of preaching, to say, we're going to try and be famous. It's very, very easy to go in that direction. We have to be very careful when we're doing anything, it has to be with the right intention. Yeah? Yes, Maharaja.
Something with the wrong intention doesn't stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Something with the right intention will.
It's a beautiful point.
Yes, that's excellent.
Thank you. Yeah.
Things that are actually done, right intention means under the proper guidance of the spiritual authorities and in a way that's directed. We're just getting it done in order to somehow or other get some benefit from it. That's the wrong intention.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of fruitive activities in our movement. Everyone is looking for some gain for what they do. And I mean, there's different gains on different levels too. There's something that may come in the form of some praise or some honor, and then maybe something comes in the form of something gross, like some pecuniary gain. Yeah. I'm talking to myself. That's why we have to be really careful. Yeah. We have to be conscious of why we're doing what we're doing and what is the motivation behind it. If we lose the motivation, then we get into another circle of thoughts that we can't even find the motivation anymore. Anyway, I don't want to take over the class. That's another subtle art.
That's a great point. I feel that, just building on that, one of the things that we can do is we can positively cultivate the right motivation. Because as we said, this idea of seeds in the heart, there are all these different seeds. It is not expected that someone's going to be pure from day one, right? Although what we can have is pure intention, even from the beginning. But it's not expected that all the heart will be free of these other things. But it's a question of what are we feeding? What do we cultivate? Okay, there are all these different desires because we've just come in from the material world. Okay, but which desires am I strengthening and which desires am I actually weakening? So as a devotee, we want to really try, and very simple, for example, we can even pray, please let me do this as an offering to you. We can pray to the spiritual master, pray to Krishna. It's not just a question of chance. It's not just, well, I'm not pure Prabhu, so I can't do anything pure. Well, we can cultivate that pure intention. One thing that I found very interesting in relation to this is that sometimes Krishna will show us that what we're doing wasn't done with such a pure intention in the first place. Because if it's done with a very pure intention, let's say that we're doing a service and there was a strong desire for recognition. One way that Krishna will show us that actually you're doing it more for recognition is that when you don't get the recognition, you'll feel like, why am I doing this? Why am I actually giving up the service? And it's a sign of, because if it wasn't about the recognition, then whether it comes or doesn't come, it makes no difference. We do the service and we do it with enthusiasm. But if it's like, no one's recognizing me, this is terrible, right? I'm not going to do this anymore. Then it's a sign that actually there was something else that was motivating that particular service. Yes?
I have a question. So imagine
if we just give you the microphone.
Thank you, I'm really enjoying myself right now. Listening to you about our service and everything. I have a question. Imagine we pray to Krishna and we say, please take, this is my offering. But then you go about your day, you do your service, but then you forget that it's for Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
But then you still pray every day, okay, this is for you, Krishna. How can we keep remembering that, okay, this is for you, Krishna, but at the same time you're doing something?
Yeah, so the idea is that anything that you keep practicing will become saturated within your consciousness. So maybe in the beginning we just do that prayer, but we don't always remember. But there will come a time that through that we will have that mentality that will become more pervasive. So anything that you cultivate can actually expand. So that's one point. The other thing I'd say to that, yeah, I think that would be the key thing.
I'll just tell you I do. So I work in childcare,
Okay.
and all of the kids and me, we pray together. Today, Krishna, our playing is for you, Krishna. This is our offering to you. So, but then we go out and just play and we do our thing. But then it's like, okay, how can we,
Okay, I have another thought, but I think it would be also, Maharaj may have a thought on that, because there's something that comes to my mind as well.
So you're praying to Krishna to play for Krishna with the kids, and then when they go out, you just get into the play. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Krishna would like to see the kids play and have fun. Yeah, that's part of life, I mean, what can we expect from kids if they're playing and if they're not fighting, which is also part of their play.
I think she was meaning, how can she remember that she's doing it as a service to the Lord?
They're just recalling their prayer each regularly, as a reminder to yourself. but you fortify as Bhuta Bhavana says, it becomes more part of your consciousness. You keep remembering why you're doing what you're doing. And the benefit that you get when you remember, when you know the motivation behind it, is greater than when you don't know the motivation, or you just do it. And that's also part of this discussion. Yeah.
And so, just to echo Maharaja's point, that's also in Krishna book. I think it's in the past time where Krishna lives Govardhan Hill. He's talking about activity when it's done in knowledge, it's actually more beneficial. So he begins by asking the residents of Vrindavan, why are we doing all these sacrifices? What's the purpose behind it? What came to my mind also was the pastime of Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was telling him that, having to deal with all the people, the business, builders and everyone when they were building a temple in India. He said, having to deal with all of these things, and Prabhupada made the point, said that when Arjuna was fighting on the battlefield, he was just thinking about the fighting. But the fact that he's doing it for Krishna means automatically it's beneficial in that sense. But bringing it all together to Maharaja's point, just that practice it will pervade. And then for a pure devotee, Prabhupada said, I was listening to Memories of Prabhupada, Hridayananda Maharaj is the first one in the series. They're all on YouTube. And Prabhupada he recalls a pastime of Prabhupada. Prabhupada was talking about how when he was young, they would do Rath Yatra and so on. And Prabhupada made the point to him, and he understood, he said, I was always thinking of Krishna. And he said he understood at that time that Prabhupada's point was making to him is that never was there a time that he did not think of Krishna. And so of course a pure devotee, when one comes to that platform, is pervasive. Does that answer your question? Thank you. So we'll read on. So those 6 that we mentioned, they are the deceitful, they're the ways in which this particular type of spiritual practitioner can go off. And of course the underlying point is we're trying to do things with more and more purity. Because actually what happens is, if we clean the gross things out, and we also clean the subtle things out. It's a progression. But what happens is, if we don't then remove the subtle, what happens? They become gross again. You see? So it's a journey. So that the pastime of Gandicha Marjan, right? Lord Chaitanya is cleaning the temple. He first clears out the gross aspects, and then he does even more fine cleaning. And so that's symbolic of this idea. So this is getting into the more subtle aspects. So what we can do when we're practicing devotional service is when we're doing the kirtan, we really try to do the kirtan as an offering to Krishna. It's not, I've got a fancy tune that no one's heard before, right? Maybe it'll go viral on Instagram, whatever. It's actually, let me try and do it. And it's not that it will automatically be perfect, but what Krishna appreciates is what? Bhava Grahi Janardana, which means Krishna accepts the essence of a devotee's service. They're trying their best. They're actually trying their best. And because we're trying our best, He will help us to perfect it. And His devotees will also. Okay, so those are the 6 of the Swanishta Sadhaka. The next one. So that was the first one, that's Grahastas. This is also Grahasta. So the deceitful nature of the Parinishta Sadhaka can be exhibited in 2 ways. This is directly Bhaktivinoda's commentary to this Manashiksha. Number 1, this is interesting, making an external show of strictly following rules and regulations and rules and prohibitions, while inwardly being very attached to material subjects unrelated to Krishna. I'm going to read that again. Number 1, making an external show of strictly following rules and prohibitions while inwardly being very attached to material subjects unrelated to Krishna. So, the key point is that we don't want to make a show of devotional service. We just want to be very sincere. It's not about showing off, it's not about presenting ourselves a certain way. It's about the sincerity. I want to try my best to serve. So sometimes you'll see, even in devotional service, sometimes the issue is that devotees externally look so strict, And it gets to the point that they now criticize other people. What, they come into the temple, but they don't dress like I do. And the person who's saying it, they always happen to dress a certain way. And what they're basically saying is, I'm superior to these other devotees. I'm better than these other devotees. They don't do what I do. And so it actually feeds the false ego. The trouble with all of these is that these are all means of feeding the false ego, which is exactly the thing that we're trying to actually become free of in our devotional life. And it's more pernicious, more difficult, because they're subtle things. So we wouldn't say following the rules and regulations is bad, but making a show of it. Interestingly enough, if people follow properly, it's meant to make us soft-hearted. So if someone is making a show of it, I'm so great because I'm following all these other people, you'll see that they become hard-hearted. They become, rather than having a genuine loving appreciation for the devotees.
Intolerant.
Sorry?
Intolerant.
Yeah, absolutely intolerant. And the painful is, we forget that that's the journey that we were on. Generally, when people come to the movement, no one's perfectly behaved. I remember I was at ISKCON London Temple. I think it was Radha Maharaj was giving morning class, and the etiquette is after the speakers chanted the verse, then the senior people in the room they'll chant it, etc. I didn't know that, so Radha Maharaj he chanted the verse, and then Bhakta Eddie decides I'm gonna chant the verse, and I actually noticed. Radha Maharaj, he looked at the temple president like, what's going on here? Like that. And I didn't realize. Another time, I'd come from the temple, we'd gone to visit Bhakti Charamaj, he was in the UK. And I'd come from the temple, I had a garland on. So I decided I'm going to give Bhakti Charamaj my garland. Yeah. This is early days, I didn't know. But I said, can I give you my garland? He was very humble, he didn't say anything. But his well-trained disciples afterwards took me to one side and what are you doing? So, yeah. But the point is that it's why we're doing what we're doing. And this is also a good litmus test. Am I becoming soft-hearted?
Nothing wrong in what you did, you just didn't know.
Yeah.
It's based on just not knowing.
Yeah.
That wasn't, your intention was good though.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
Thank you.
It wasn't the pretense.
Thank you. I feel better now. But the idea is that we can use this as a litmus test. When I'm engaging in devotional service, am I becoming soft-hearted? Are the symptoms which are meant to be developed within my heart, are they increasing? Yeah. And if we don't, what will happen is, what does Bhaktivinoda Thakur talk about? Bahimukha Shishya. He says there are different types of devotees. The Antamukha Shishya, Bahimukha Shishya. Antamukha Shishya is internal devotees. They're introspective, thoughtful. They try to always, how do I refine? But the Bahimukha Shishya, external. It's about how things look. And the difficulty is it creates a culture. Because if everyone else is being external, if it's all about the external things, then what tends to happen is people think, well, if that's what gets a round of applause, if that's what gets all the recognition, maybe I should go in that same direction as well. Okay? So it's very dangerous in that sense. So that's the first one, there's two here. So this is the, speaking about the Parinishta Sadhaka. So we said the first one, making an external show of strictly following rules and regulations and rules and prohibitions, while inwardly being very attached to material subjects unrelated to Krishna. So there's an orientation in spiritual life. No one's expected to be perfect, but what's the direction we're moving in? Am I trying to become better? Or is it like, let me just hide all the material things I do, and I have no intention of giving them up. No intention. Even recognizing that some things are there, if I'm at least, let me see how I can connect it to Krishna. That's progressive. So we want to be real about where we are, but also how we can move forward. It's not expected that everything will be done overnight. Even just, I've got this attachment. Wow, that's humble, it's honest. It's more that sense of being authentic with ourselves and in the association of devotees. Now, authentic doesn't mean that you tell everyone everything about yourself. I'm not saying that. Right? But it means at least we know where we are. Because this is interesting. If we know where we are, we naturally have some humility. Right? If I recognize, oh, I'm not so good at this, I'm not so good in that, I will show up in the association of Vaishnavas in a different way because I'm aware of my shortcomings. But if I'm not, then I deceive myself. I think I'm better than I am. Therefore, it gives me right to look down on other people. I think it gives me right to look down on other people. And then eventually, Punamushikabhava. You know the story? There's a story about a mouse who's being harassed by a cat. So he approaches a sage, a mystic, and he says, this cat's giving me so much trouble. So the mystic, by his mystic ability, transforms the mouse into a cat. And then later on, the cat's now being harassed by some other creature. He goes to the mystic again. The mystic transforms him so that other creature no longer troubles him. Happens again. This time the mystic transforms that same creature into a lion. So then the lion turns around and looks now at the mystic and thinks, right, now I'm a lion, I'm going to eat you up. And so the mystic sage says to him, therefore, Punamushikobhava, once again you become a mouse. And the idea here is that it is by Krishna's mercy we can be elevated so much. But if we don't recognize it's Krishna, and if we don't recognize it's come through the vehicle of his devotees, and then the very people who made us what we are, we now turn on them, then eventually we go back. Punamushikobhava, once again we become a mouse. You'll notice that sometimes devotees, when they're practicing Krishna consciousness, they're doing amazing things. You'll notice that if that same devotee leaves Krishna consciousness, the potency doesn't leave with them. So in the movement, they're doing all these amazing things. We sometimes see that with leaders who've been in our movement. Big projects, millions of dollars, all of this facility, and then they leave, and you'll see that the moment they move outside of the circle of devotion, no money, no influence, nothing. Because it was Krishna's potency that was making all of that happen. You see? So it's Krishna working through us. And that understanding, this reading is so therapeutic for the devotee on many levels, because it just reminds us, if I'm aware of my shortcomings, it helps me to be humble in the way I'm dealing with people. Because I remember, I'm not great. I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that, and therefore I have empathy. It's not just humility, I also have empathy and compassion for other people's struggles. Because I can relate. Yeah, of course, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be in that difficult situation. This idea that I'm the center of attention, it plays out in our speech, in our feelings, in our thoughts. We generally don't even see the other devotees properly. Because if I'm in the center, I only see you in reference to me. I can't understand you in your world. I can't understand what you're going through, how you experience things. It doesn't occur to me. Because it's all about me, and you're an extension of my sense gratification. So, as we advance, Krishna's in the center, it allows us to actually see the entire world objectively. And the more that we're in the center, there's no way that we'll be able to see. And it will play out in our relationships with the devotees as well. Absolutely will play out. Because this, I'm the center, this idea of the enjoying tendency, it distorts the vision of reality. Let's read on. So, the second one, this category, is preferring the association of non-devotees rather than Krishna-conscious devotees. That's interesting. There's this idea of resonance, that we resonate with individuals for various reasons. So preferring the association of non-devotees. Now look, we touched upon this before. We won't get along with everyone in the same way in our movement. Okay? But if there's no devotees that you resonate with, none whatsoever, it's probably something that we're doing wrong. Yeah, to be very honest. It's like if there's no one, it's like everyone's, they're all the Vaishnavas, none of them understand me, none of them get me. It's like, well no, hold on. No, the likelihood is actually it's us. So this is a kind of subtle warning about that. And then now, this is the third one, the Nirupeksha Sadhaka, the third type of spiritual practitioner, who we said is renounced. Their type of deceitful nature can be displayed in 8 ways.
There are only 2 for Parikshit.
Only 2. Yeah,
okay.
only 2.
Thank you.
Yes. Now this first one's very interesting. Number 1, thinking oneself as an advanced Vaishnava. Yeah. It's very interesting. It's all about, we have subtly, subconsciously, a frame of reference. Right? We don't just see the world. We see the world in relation to something else. There was because the world is all around money, they study this topic really, really well. So in marketing, if you go into like a men's clothing store, a high-end clothing store, even medium, when you go in, if they know psychology, they put all the expensive clothes first. Right? And they do it on purpose. The idea is you first come in, you see like the suits which are £1,000. Okay? That's deliberate because they're not expecting you to buy that suit. But you come in, the first few suits you saw, they're £1,000. So when you get further into the store and the other suits are 500, 600, you think that's reasonable. You think it's reasonable in comparison to the first suits that you saw. Like that. In the same way as devotees, this point about thinking oneself an advanced devotee, we're thinking about ourselves in relation to usually the devotees who are less advanced. If you look at yourself in relationship to Prabhupada, you don't think you're an advanced devotee. You see? So we have, often subconsciously, we have a reference point that's going on. Who am I comparing myself to? Someone says, I'm doing really well in devotional service. You wouldn't say that if you were on Prabhupada. Yeah? We're comparing ourselves implicitly, not consciously. There's some kind of, this is a bar, and I'm looking at myself in relationship to that particular bar. So, thinking oneself an advanced Vaishnava means we're still comparing ourselves to practitioners in the material world. But our goal is Goloka Vrindavan. And what this whole area is relating to is to be completely outside of that material frame. It is beneficial to consider how we've progressed though. It's good to see, have I moved forward from where I was last year? That's fantastic, that's very, very good. Right? Am I on track? Am I making progress in that way? That's very, very good. But this, considering ourselves an advanced devotee, it means that it's going to trigger pride. And that will get in the way. Number 2, thinking of oneself as superior to others simply by wearing the dress of a renounced person. Isn't that interesting? The way that our culture works is that everyone is looking for a reason to glorify and respect the other person. There was, I think it was to do with Chapati. So Radha Maharaj, there were complaints from the Grahastas that the devotees in the temple, they don't deal with us properly. And I think there was some place from the other side, the devotees in the temple, the Grahastas don't act properly. And he apologized to both groups. And he told both, so when he spoke to one group, he'll tell them the glories of the other group. And that's actually the proper culture. The proper culture is everyone is looking for a reason to respect and appreciate the other group. And it's the same in all categories. You know, the Grahastas and the Brahmacharis, sannyasis, you know, the male devotees, the female devotees. We're actually looking to see what can I do in terms of appreciation. And that keeps us very, very safe. The moment we go into this mentality, I'm looking for something to think that I'm better than other people, it's considered to be duplicity, hypocrisy. Because in the ultimate sense, what am I? I'm a servant of Krishna. I remember my spiritual master saying this, everything in spiritual life becomes easy when there's sufficient humility and compassion. I repeat that. Everything in spiritual life becomes easy when there is sufficient humility and compassion. Yeah, because I remember what it's like. I remember days when I've turned up and I wasn't in a good space. So when I see someone else acting in a certain way, probably something's going on in their life that's not really good. You know? And then also with the humility, whether we get some appreciation or don't get some appreciation, we're not dependent on it. And therefore we can continue on in our spiritual life with some enthusiasm. So this is the idea behind that. So it's not about the dress. Number 3, so this again, the deceitful things, these are some of the 8 ways in which a deceitful nature of the Nirapeksha sadhaka can come through. Number 3, collecting material wealth for food and clothing more than required. You'll be familiar with this, right? From the Nectar of Instruction. Over-collecting, over-endeavouring for mundane things which are very difficult to attain. This echoes that idea. So, collecting material wealth for food and clothing more than required. Number 4, and this is those in the renounced group. Number 4, improperly associating with the opposite sex in the name of spiritual practices. One example I read in here, it was talking about, let's say someone is, a renunciate or even brahmachari, and they want to train the females, the female devotees in deity worship, but the actual purpose is to have the association of women. So, like that. So number 4. Number 5, staying with materialistic people with the expectation of receiving wealth rather than visiting Krishna's temple.
Rather than what?
Visiting Krishna's temple. Like that. Now, let's put it in context. Sometimes devotees would go out to wealthy people in order to collect, in order to generate funds for devotional service. That's different. But here we're talking about renunciates. Their purpose isn't to line their own pocket, or shouldn't be, to line their own pockets. The purpose is meant to be, if you're doing it, all of that goes to Krishna. It's not for us. So that's the move that should be there. Number 6, being inwardly anxious and worried about collecting more wealth while making a pretense of performing devotional service or chanting. Okay? So inside, it's all about how can I get more and more material things, but externally I'm going to be like, I'm very renounced, I'm a sannyasi, etc., etc. That's number 6. Number 7, being more concerned with external dress and rules and regulations than devotion for Krishna. Isn't that interesting? Again, Bahimukha Shishya. See, the way that we cultivate our spiritual life, it affects our consciousness in a certain way. It's possible that we can have a situation where someone comes into the temple and they're very sincere. They're new, they don't know anything, but they're very, very sincere. And we may judge them very externally and think, who is this person? I think when Radha Maharaj first met the devotees, he had long hair, and so for some, they may have a certain view towards him. I know that my spiritual master also said that when he first came to the temple, he said that some people, they didn't want to preach to him. He said some of them, they could see that they thought maybe he's a bit proud because he's been to Princeton and so on. But for some of them, they looked at him and think, can this person in this body, can he really understand this philosophy? Like that. So this is what it means. This waiting on the externals without really trying to get to understand the individual, the real essence of the person, and to deal with them accordingly is an issue. So, let's go on. That's number 7, being more concerned with external dress and rules and regulations than devotion for Krishna. And the last one, number 8, overlooking or neglecting the main purpose of spiritual life. This is really important.
Overlooking?
Or neglecting the main purpose of spiritual life. Why did we join this movement? If you watch carefully, you'll see that many devotees, by the way that we're acting, you can see that we've forgotten the purpose of joining this movement. After a while, it becomes just about doing certain things for the sake of it, rather than, hold on, why am I doing all this stuff? Why did I join? Remember, we joined to actually achieve a goal. We joined to actually become pure devotees, pure lovers of Guru and Krishna. we took a group to Govardhan Eco Village. By the way, what time am I meant to finish? 11:30. We took a group of people to Govardhan Eco Village, and so Radha Maharaj was coming to speak to them. And before he came, we just gave him we briefed him about the group. And then we were in a place in Govardhan Eco Village. They've created this area called Prema Sarovar. So it's obviously a replica of Vrindavan. And so he was there, and he was just talking before he gave class. And he said something really interesting. He said everything becomes easier in spiritual life if we always remember the goal. Always remember, why am I actually doing all of this? Because then it puts everything into context. In business, sometimes they talk about mission drift. That you have a business and they're starting the business, but they forget the purpose of the business. And if you forget the purpose of the business, you end up going out of business. Something similar happens for us. If we remember the goal, then it actually makes it easier to deal with everything that happens, because it's not so important because I remember what I'm doing. I remember why I'm doing it, like that. So we have to remind ourselves, remind each other, why are we actually doing what we're doing? Why do we come to morning program? Why do we chant Hare Krishna? Why do we associate with the devotees? Why do we listen to these classes and read these books? Oh yeah, Prema Pramata Mahan. We're actually doing it because we're trying to develop something very specific. We're trying to develop our love for Krishna, and it puts everything in context. And without that, it's easy to lose determination. Because if my goal becomes something else, and then I don't get it, I lose determination. If my goal is transcendental, then the good situation, the bad situation, it makes no difference. It makes a difference on an emotional level, but it still becomes a stepping stone. So to put it another way, a sign of someone who's genuinely becoming transcendental is able to say thank you to Krishna for every situation. Right? I mean, I don't like to admit it, but I've seen that sometimes I grow a lot more through adversity and difficulty than if things were just smooth. Can anyone relate to that, or is that just me?
No.
Okay.
Everyone, I think.
So it's like that sometimes. So Krishna knows that. He's very aware of that. But we're able to go through those difficulties without, burning out, or without leaving, or without settling at a lower level, if we remember, why am I tolerating this? Prabhupada says in one place, he says that unless one has an understanding of why they're doing what they're doing, one will not be able to continue to be austere or to make sacrifices. You see? It's just like you've been given a medicine by a doctor, but you know why you're given that medicine. You know how it's going to affect you, how it's going to benefit you. You know how long it's going to take for the medicine to take effect. Then you're taking the medicine, even though you don't like it, it tastes horrible. But you know this is going to benefit me because I'm very clear on the outcome of doing that. But if you forget the outcome, then one day you wake up and you think, why am I taking these horrible tasting pills? Right? Why am I even spending money to buy these medicines in the first place? Right? I'm sitting down at dinner, I've got to take this before, I'm seeing all my friends, they get straight to the cake or the main course, I've got to go upstairs and get these pills and take them. Why am I doing this? And then you'll stop doing it. So it's a stage of the deterioration. First we forget why we're doing what we're doing. It usually starts there, and it's very subtle. Because if I'm around the devotees and they don't remember why they're doing what they're doing either, then it's easy for me to forget because all of my friends, they don't know either. And it also leads to mechanical practice. One thing that can transform practice to make it more alive and vibrant is to have an awareness of why I'm doing what I'm doing when I'm doing it. And I was thinking this morning, I can't remember where it is, but I'm sure I read somewhere. When you chant in the presence of Tulsi, it's 1,000 times the benefit. 1,000 times. And there's many things in devotional service which are like that. There are many statements on the scriptures which are like that. So it's like, right, now's the reason now I understand why we're doing that. Now I understand how powerful that is. Now I understand how it's going to help me to move forward. Wow. It changes the nature of it. As Prabhupada talks about that, he says that those people who are not engaged in devotional life, they have a poor fund of knowledge. And we read that statement, but what he means by that is they don't know why it's important to do this. And they don't know why it's important not to do these material things. They have a poor fund of knowledge. And that fund of knowledge means it sets the frame about how I see something, how I think about it, how I feel about it, how I engage in it. So, those are some comments on that. I know that we go to 11:30, so I'm going to pause here. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Bhajana Dharma has spoken about the 3 types of spiritual practitioners. He's talked about the 8 types of deceit that actually can get in the way. And then also, I'll just maybe make one last point before we open up for questions. These will all be overcome by good association. I think that's the key point. And we'll get into that, I think, more in the future verse, but I'll just share that. In good association, you'll see that we echoed this before. Pure devotees, they carry Krishna's potency. Let's just see if we can check something. So I think that's where that point will be made very, very clear in the next verse. Yeah. So we'll get into that more in the next verse. But pure devotees, they carry Krishna's potency, specifically the Ladini Shakti, Krishna's internal potency. And there's specific things that we can do in relation to those pure devotees which cause that Ladini Shakti to enter into our own hearts. Okay, but that'll be for the next verse. Okay, I'll pause here. Questions? I saw a hand, Brother Bhakti. Can you pass the microphone, please?
Hi, well, thank you so much for that class. My question is, what's the difference between wanting recognition, which we know is not great, and wanting to feel seen by the Guru and Krishna? Is that bad?
What's the difference between wanting recognition and wanting to be seen? So I guess the question is, wanting to be seen, what's behind that?
So, wanting the Guru and Krishna to accept our service and to understand what we've done for him, what we've put into it. Is that also like pratishta, or is that okay? And is that all right to want?
If we desire to please the spiritual master, if we want the spiritual master to be pleased with our service, that's fine. That's fine.
So I'm just going to make it really practical. Let's say you do something to please the Guru or another devotee, and you didn't get that feeling that they understood what you did. Is it wrong to feel like that? Oh, but I just want him to know. I just want to tell someone. Is that pratishta? Is that bad?
So we've done some service. We didn't necessarily get the reciprocation that we expected, like that.
Not even reciprocation, but like, does he know?
Does he know that we did that? Okay. I think this is one for a spiritual master. So if you can pass the microphone, I haven't even. I'll say after mine has got lots of experience, so I think it's good to. How do you?
That's why she's asking. Because without getting into examples. Well, Prabhupada used to say, that devotees would ask, how do we know that Krishna is pleased when we offer our devotional service? And Prabhupada went right to the point. He said, because you're part and parcel of Krishna, if Krishna is pleased, you'll also feel happy, satisfied with the service. So he made that point, and that question came up a few times with Prabhupada. He also answered it the same way. I think there's a little tinge of false ego in there, wanting to get some recognition or reciprocation for what you do, even if it's done in the right way. The satisfaction comes in the service. That's how it's understood. And devotional service is different than materialistic service, because in materialist service there's always some desire for something. some gain, some recognition, some reciprocation, something. But in devotional service, the object is to please the Lord. And again, if Krishna feels satisfied, then why worry about it? I mean, if we feel satisfied with the service. If you're feeling unsatisfied with it, then maybe there's something you should reflect on, see why what I did wasn't in line with the proper move, or even the proper way to do it. So, I think that's still part of the false ego. Wanting some. It's not a defense, it's just, it's the false ego. So I want some kickback. That's the way I see it. Anyway.
Thank you very much. Okay. So good. Okay, thank you. I saw Maharaja Prabhu had his hand up. Can we pass the microphone? And then I know we have to finish soon. So maybe that last question. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, and then we'll come back and then, so if there's any other questions that we can't answer now, we'll answer them in the next session.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for the class. It's very nice. I'm a little confused, and at the same time, I think that it seems like we equate the word recognition with the word glorification. I think in English, and I tell you why. Because Guru Maharaja, Srila Bhakti Swami, he mentions, I don't know, I never found it in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's books. But he mentioned that Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about 5 needs of the living entity in a social environment.
Yes.
And one of them is recognition, which means to be recognized, that you are someone, I read it, I heard it from Prabhu, from Gurudev many times, from Bhakti Swami many times, but I couldn't find it in any book. And I think that we are in the same line as what Maharaj is saying, of course. Some recognition is some like a little tinge of, false ego. But I will equate recognition in this way, in this sense, with glorification, the need of being glorified by what you have done. Okay, I've done this, so therefore I have to be, recognized like glorified, like you are so nice, or you are so good, or wow, man, you really know how to sweep the floor, you are the best floor sweeper in the world, something like that. So, and the person, the devotee, maybe the only thing he needs is that temple president comes and says, "Oh, thank you very much, Prabhu, we really appreciate what you're doing, Haribo," and go on, So this type of recognition is very nice for us because we feel appreciated. We feel like we are part of everything. But the glorification, it is a trap. The glorification is a trap because you fall down. Yeah, I'm the best sweeper. And probably no one sweeps the floor like I do. Anyway, I'm not very scholar. I'm not just very dumb person, but maybe that helps. Okay?
I would just I would expand on that in a particular way. We should feel that for ourselves it's our job to encourage others. Yeah. So our feeling is that it's a loving exchange, right? Giving, receiving gifts, etc. So we can encourage others. But the fact is we may or may not always get that from others. So if our devotional life is dependent on that, it can be challenging like that. And then in terms of I haven't read that. I remember Bhakti Tirthamaj talking about Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the Chaitanya Shikshamrita saying that unless one is a Paramahamsa, one has to have good care for the body, proper care for the body, good stimulation for the mind, good social situation, and good study of the Shastra to see how all of those fit together. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. So yeah, it works sort of, if we all feel that it's our job to encourage each other, then it gets taken care of in that sense. Okay. So we'll stop there. Thank you very much, and I think the next class is 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Brace yourself.
So